I don't try to run away every time I see lightning on the way. I'm one of those people who would rather not be home during a storm. When this happened, I was living in a college dorm. It was my second year of school, and I was in a room with a good friend named Peter whom I had met in the previous year. So, we got along very well. I just don't want anyone to think there's something in the house that's keeping me from coming back. No, I like to be out in the storm. And no, that doesn't mean I like it raining, because while it probably doesn't bother me as much as it might bother other people, I don't particularly care for it either. What I like is being in a coffee shop, a bookstore, hell, even a Walmart during a storm. When I came out of the classroom, I saw that the sky was very, very dark. The pressure was dropping, and I could tell a storm was coming. At that point, I decided to go to the bookstore coffee shop where I most wanted to study. I thought most of the students would go back to their dorms, and the place would be empty. Well, I was right about the place being empty, except for the two employees, one in the bookstore office and the other the barista. There was only me and one other person in the place. It was not a big store like a Border, it was a small place. There was a table right next to the window where I put my stuff and could watch the storm from there. I barely made it before it started to rain, and fell hard. I was working on my laptop, running some statistics through SPSS, and having a really good time. After some work, a movement outside caught my attention. When I looked out the window, I was surprised to see my dorm roommate outside in the rain. He didn't even have an umbrella and was wet from head to toe. He was walking on the opposite side of the street from me. He stopped in front of a shop and then looked here and there several times. After that, he turned back the way he came. I thought it was weird, but I wasn't sure what to think about the subject. Maybe he just got caught in the storm and realized he was already wet so he could continue his work. Maybe back to the dormitory. I don't know. I saw him again about half an hour later. This time he continued walking on the path and did not return. Maybe he forgot something the first time? I'm not sure. However, the fact that he was walking in the rain without an umbrella for a long time worried me a little. I got up, went to the bookstore cafe door, opened the door, and looked for him. I didn't see him anywhere, so I texted him as soon as I got back to the store, but I didn't expect to hear back from him. I let him know I was at the cafe and thought he was walking up a storm. If he was soaked to the bone, he was unlikely to be able to text on his smartphone. I put it out of my mind. After a while, the storm died down a bit. When the rain stopped, I went back to the dorm room. The sky was still dark, and it was clear that the storm was not over. But I felt that I was easily back in my room. I was also curious to see what was going on with my roommate. When I returned to the room, the door was unlocked. I immediately thought that meant my roommate was there. However, he was not. It was very strange that he had left the door open. I never knew him to do that. But everyone makes mistakes now and then. That's right. As I sat at my desk, I received a text message. I looked at my phone and saw Peter. The message was that we should not go back to my room because he had a girl there. I found this message very chilling. It was very strange that I got up and went to lock the door. I also chained. I went back to my desk and looked at my phone. I kept thinking about how to reply to the message. It was so weird, I guess I wanted to know what he was doing, so I replied that I wasn't coming back until he told me he was done. I don't know why, but I thought he was playing some kind of game, and I wanted to see what. About half an hour later, the door handle moved. I immediately got up and went to the door and looked through the peephole. A man I had never seen in my life was trying to enter the room. I went and got my phone to call the university police if needed. I heard the key go into the lock, and this person tried to open the door. Thank God I had closed the chain. The moment the chain restrained the door, it slammed shut, and I heard that someone was indeed in the hallway. The whole situation was very strange, and I called the university police. I tried texting Peter several times. I never got an answer, and he never came back to the hostel. Finally, a missing person report was filed. This happened 5 years ago, and neither I nor Peter's family have heard from him. The only thing was his strange behavior in the storm and the description I had of the man through the eye hole. No one had a key to the room but the two of us, so whoever the man was had Peter's key. Also his mobile phone. He would go back to the dorm room for anything, trying to make sure I wasn't there. I have never seen him again. I miss Peter so much, but I also think if I hadn't been so nervous that I put the chain on the door, would I have disappeared too? I worked the midnight shift at a gas station and have been working at various gas stations in different areas with varying levels of criminal activity for some time. Of course, I have regular people. I'm a petite woman. There was a man who worked an hour away on the subway and stopped by every morning for his cigarette. He never smiled or seemed friendly, and as so often, I tried to think of what I could do that might make him smile one day. It took months, but I finally pulled it off by putting his cigarettes on the counter and making sure he paid when he came in. He smiled and then asked me, "Have you ever been scared on the night shift? You are not safe, little girl." I said I would sometimes, but if we had to, we could lock the doors and hide, and that the provincial police had a station nearby and often came here to wash their highway vehicles for. I had a good relationship with that policeman. He nodded and then told me a story about when he first moved to our country from Eastern Europe in the late 80s and early 90s with his wife and child. One night at the gas station where he worked in the middle of the night, it rained heavily and there were terrible thunderstorms. Because the weather was so bad, I thought to myself that no one would come and fall asleep at work. When I woke up, the phone had been ringing for hours and his manager was shaking him violently and asking him if he was okay. He was fine, he said. "What's wrong?" I regretted that I slept. His manager shouted that he had fallen asleep and didn't notice. All their engine oil was gone, and the place was a mess outside. The thieves had come and drained all the oil and left me because I was sleeping the whole time, and then they had moved down the road to the next stop to see a match. At that station, the clerk was awake and put up a fight, so the robbers stabbed him to death and left him to bleed. When he told me this, he concluded, "If you ever feel sleepy, just lock the door and do it. It might save your life." I don't work at that station anymore, but I keep thinking about that guy and wondering how his grandkids are doing. And the killers of that secretary were found 25 years later.